How about this? So Saturday, everything was about GOAT. Is he the greatest of all time? Here, I'll say right here and now. He wanted it on Tuesday. I'll give it to him on Monday. He is the pound for pound king. I have voted every month. I vote for ESPN.com. It's myself, Brett Okamoto, Mark Raimondi, Jeff Wagenheim. And up until this point, I gave it to John Jones. This is the first time I'm giving it to Khabib because of how John has looked as of late. I thought he lost to Dominic Reyes, and because of how great Khabib has looked. Khabib is the pound for pound king, but of course he's no more, but I'm still going to give it to him for now. He's the man. He's the pound for pound king. Now, the GOAT discussion is interesting. And speaking of John Jones, John, from me to you, my friend, from me to you, I won't even ask you about it, DC. Just from me to you, John, read the room, my man. Read the room. Like everyone is praising Khabib on Saturday. I know you feel a little slighted, but the litany of tweets telling everyone why you're the best, like save that for next week, my guy. Read the room. Give Khabib his day, give him his time in the sun, and state your case. I thought that was poor form on John Jones's part. Really, like just give the guy his moment. But let me ask you, is he the greatest of all time? Is Khabib the man in your opinion? Number one.
When I look at Khabib, and I look, man, everybody gets mad at me because they go, you just hate John Jones. No, I don't. It's not just it. Like the reality is, if you have a bad test, I feel like it eliminates you. And I know people like, well, Pete Rose and Barry Bonds, those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. No. If you cheated, you probably should. Look, I like Barry
Bonds or David Ortiz?
Hey, listen. Also, wait, let me get to that. So Barry Bonds, right? Who I enjoyed, right? He played in the Bay Area. The Giants is right up there. I think he's a nice guy. And if you look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, Barry Bonds, he probably was the best player in baseball before at that point too. But when he was the Hulk Barry and he's knocking 75 home runs a year, something's going on. And if you're failing test after test after test, it eliminates you. You're out. I'm sorry. So when you talk about the athletes that are eligible, I think it boils down to GSP and it boils down to Khabib. That's where I feel. I talk about GSP. I did an essay on Khabib. George St-Pierre. He's a fantastic fighter. Got 2 losses. One of his last fights was a split decision win against Johnny Hendricks, but he's a 2-division champion. That's kind of what separates them a little bit. But when I look at him, man, George had close fights. Khabib never really got challenged. And to get to 29-0, that's why I talk about mistakes, right? George made mistakes. George made a mistake in the Matt Serra fight. Because if he wouldn't have, Matt Serra would never have beaten him. He was better, right? Khabib never made a mistake. So I think Khabib is the greatest fighter of all time.
It is a great case that you're making, but isn't it worth noting that at the end, GSP had 9 title defenses successful, plus winning against Bisping, right? In the end, Khabib just had those 3 that you mentioned.
Let me ask you a question though. With how many fights in did George St. Pierre get his title fight?
I'm just saying when you have
the belt, but that's the question. How many fights in did George St. Pierre get his title fight?
I mean, maybe
that's the question.
Can tell us about
that. Corporate Jake, if you don't mind, could you tell me how many fights before George fought for a title? Because this is the reality.
He lost his first title fight, and that was to Matt Hughes. That was one of the 2 losses.
All right. So here's the question. Are you confident that Frankie Edgar or Benson Henderson would have beat Khabib Nurmagomedov?
No.
That's what I'm saying, right? So if he would have got, remember, but it was harder to say give Khabib a title fight back then because it was all decisions. It was a lot of injuries. The only time, for a long time, between 2014 and 16, the only time people saw Khabib was on your show. Like that was it. Like the only time they saw him was when because he was hurt, right? He was hurt all the time. So he would be on your show. That's when people would see Khabib. But are you certain those guys would have beat him? If he would have won that belt back then, he would have still gotten to 29-0 and defended the belt 12 times, 13 times. They would not have beaten him.
It's a fair point. Okay, so GSP's 4th UFC fight.
Khabib went 9.
Was a title fight, yeah.
Khabib went 9. He had to wait longer. And he was ready before 9. He was ready. So
I'm going to give you, I break it into 2 lists. Tell me what you think of my list. I give you the PD list and the non-PD list. And what I mean by PD, I'm not trying to be funny, just people who have infractions, right?
Yep.
This is the PD list right now for me. GSP, Jones, Anderson, Daniel Cormier, Khabib. And why do I put him at the bottom? You went up. Anderson went, they all went up, and I feel like that counts for something. Now, I also don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. Maybe this changes in a year. Now, this is the non-PD list, okay? GSP, don't hate me. Daniel Cormier, Khabib, DJ, Fedor. That's the non-PD list.
You're my guy, and I appreciate that completely.
You went twice. You went up.
Yes, I appreciate you. But if I'm doing the PED list, right, the guys that have done stuff, if I am forced gun to the head, then I would say Khabib is up. Khabib, then Jones, then GSP, then Anderson, and then Fedor. I would still put Fedor above myself. Non-PED list, I think you have GSP, Khabib, GSP, DJ, Fedor, and then Henry Cejudo, myself, kind of sliding into that last spot. But if you're putting those guys that have done stuff, I'm out. And maybe further down too, right? Because then you got to start thinking about the other guys that have won championships from the past that may have done things wrong. So, but yeah, I think that Khabib's the number one guy in the pound list of all time. We've never seen dominance like this. Hey, Ariel, he's never been cut. He's never been dropped. We have never been in a Khabib Nurmagomedov fight and thought, oh my God, he might lose. Even the Conor fight, right? Conor may have won a round on the judges' scorecards, but how much do the judges' scorecards matter? Being that they gave Justin the first round in that last fight, it's like we never felt like he was going to lose.
In a weird way, him leaving early and on top helps him and hurts him because he leaves with the perfect record, but also, for example, Anderson has the record for most wins to start a career, 16 in the UFC. He leaves with 13. He probably would have smashed it. But now, so it's a hard thing. It's a fun discussion. It's a fun debate. We could debate it for many years. Now, let me ask you this. This is the big question now. So the UFC is now staring at life without Khabib. He was the gateway to the Middle East. He was the gateway to Russia. They did a deal in Abu Dhabi based on him. He fought in prime time. He brings out the luminaries.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.